What if I told you that Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, once gathered up his favorite books he cherished, underlined, and read countless times, only to coat them in oil and set them on fire? And no, this wasn't some casual whim or fleeting impulse. This was a calculated act, part of something far more mysterious, an event steeped in symbolism and raw emotion. Behind this strange ritual lay a deeper story that few know, a story revealing a side of Elvis that went beyond the spotlight and his famous swagger. This act was no accident. It speaks of hidden beliefs, inner conflicts, and maybe even a desperate attempt at some kind of release or rebirth. What was he struggling with so deeply that it drove him to burn the very pages that had once guided him? Stick around as we unravel the layers of this haunting mystery and explore the hidden world of Elvis Presley's inner battles. Number 7. Setting the stage. In this video, we're diving into one of the most unusual and least known rituals Elvis Presley ever performed, one that involved his very own collection of beloved books. Far from being a simple act, this ritual is a window into a part of Elvis's life that the world rarely glimpsed. The image of Elvis as the rebellious, charismatic king of rock and roll only scratches the surface. Beneath the fame, he was a man with profound curiosity, driven by a relentless need to understand life's deeper mysteries. This rare and private ritual tells us that there was more to Elvis than the world saw, a complexity and depth that often went unnoticed amidst the blinding lights of fame. Today, we're peeling back that curtain to explore a side of Elvis that has mostly been left in the shadows. Elvis was more than a musical icon. He was a seeker. At the height of his fame, he was also on a personal journey to find meaning, often through books that explored spirituality, mysticism, and self-discovery. He wasn't just an avid reader, but a deeply thoughtful one, filling his books with notes and markings, almost as if he were having conversations with the authors on the pages. From meditation practices to ancient philosophies, from religious doctrines to occult texts, Elvis's reading list was surprisingly eclectic. His curiosity for what lay beyond the tangible, beyond fame, and beyond the rock and roll lifestyle was undeniable. Yet, this same fascination with the unknown was something he kept mostly hidden from his fans and the public eye, revealing it only through rare, cryptic moments like this one. What drove a global superstar like Elvis to embrace such unconventional ideas? How did this quest for spiritual and mystical answers shape his choices and beliefs? And perhaps, the biggest question of all, what inner turmoil led him to enact a ritual involving some of his most prized possessions, his books? It's almost as if Elvis's yearning to understand the mysteries of life was at constant odds with his turbulent reality. This particular ritual gives us clues about his struggles, his hopes, and his desperate need for meaning amidst the chaos of stardom. As we uncover the layers of this ritual, we'll see just how far Elvis was willing to go in his search for clarity, peace, and perhaps something even deeper. Stick with us as we venture into the unexplored depths of Elvis's private world. Number 6. Background on Elvis's spiritual journey. Elvis Presley wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was a man relentlessly searching for answers to questions that many of us ask, but few pursue with the same intensity. Beneath the flashy suits and commanding stage presence, Elvis was drawn to spirituality, constantly exploring the deeper meanings of life, fame, and his own purpose. He craved knowledge beyond what his fame and talent could provide, seeking out books and mentors who could guide him through this internal quest. Whether it was in the quiet hours after a show or in moments stolen away from the public eye, Elvis would immerse himself in these teachings, hoping to find the answers he needed. It wasn't just idle curiosity. It was almost as if he felt compelled to understand the mysteries of existence and his place within them. His personal library was a testament to his thirst for spiritual knowledge. Elvis's shelves were lined with an eclectic mix of titles, from the well-worn pages of the Bible to volumes on self-help, mysticism, and esoteric practices. For him, these books were more than mere objects. They were stepping stones on a journey toward enlightenment. He studied everything he could get his hands on, filling the margins with notes and marking passages that resonated with him. Books on meditation, reincarnation, numerology, and even occult philosophies all found a place in his collection. Elvis's interests weren't limited by traditional beliefs or mainstream practices. He sought out the unusual and unconventional, unafraid to explore paths that others might shy away from. Through these texts, he pieced together a worldview that was both deeply personal and entirely unique, reflecting a blend of Western religion, Eastern philosophy, and mystical traditions. But Elvis's spiritual journey wasn't a straight line. It was an ever-evolving quest, shaped by the highs and lows of his life. His fascination with the unknown only seemed to grow over time, as he delved deeper into subjects that others might find strange or even taboo. He dabbled in Eastern philosophies, studied paranormal phenomena, and became intrigued by the occult, seeing each new discovery as a way to unlock hidden parts of himself. To many, it might seem surprising that a man of his stature would be drawn to such unconventional teachings. But for Elvis, the search was ongoing, an exploration that moved with him, growing more intense as he struggled with the isolation and pressures of fame. And yet, despite this personal quest, few people outside his closest circle ever saw this side of him. It was only in moments like the ritual we're about to explore that glimpses of his inner world would surface, leaving behind more questions than answers about who Elvis Presley really was beneath the legend. Number 5. Elvis's connection to his books. For Elvis Presley, books were more than just objects collecting dust on a shelf. They were confidants, companions on a deeply personal spiritual journey, and sources of solace during times of uncertainty. In a world where few could understand the weight of his fame or the depth of his inner struggles, these books became his escape. Each one held a piece of the wisdom or guidance he sought, offering insights into questions he couldn't easily answer on his own. To Elvis, they were like old friends, always available when he needed them most, ready to lend comfort, perspective, or even a challenge to his beliefs. Through their pages, he could explore worlds far removed from the pressures of celebrity, diving into ideas that would either soothe his soul or ignite a new fire within him. These books became as much a part of his life as the music that defined his career. Elvis's relationship with his books went far beyond passive reading. He would pore over the pages, his pen in hand, underlining passages that resonated with him and scrawling notes in the margins, as if in conversation with the author. His annotations reveal a man deeply engaged, grappling with the concepts and insights that spoke to him. The margins of his books were filled with thoughts, reflections, and questions, a testament to the fact that he wasn't just absorbing information. He was wrestling with it, actively seeking to incorporate it into his own worldview. In these pages, we glimpse a side of Elvis that few were ever privy to. A man in constant dialogue with himself and his beliefs, seeking answers not just for his own life, but for something larger, something spiritual. The written words became a mirror reflecting his innermost thoughts, illuminating the complexities of a man who, despite his fame, was searching for something beyond the material world. But even as these books offered him solace and guidance, they also brought with them a shadow of inner conflict. Some of the ideas he encountered challenged him, causing him to question his own identity and purpose. At times, he may have found himself wrestling with concepts that conflicted with his personal beliefs, making him feel as if he were at odds with himself. These books held both light and darkness for him, serving as guides but also as reminders of the struggles he faced internally. It was this very conflict that eventually pushed him toward a dramatic decision, a decision that would take this spiritual connection with his books to an unexpected place. For Elvis, these volumes were more than paper and ink. They had power, an influence so potent that he felt compelled to act in a way few could have anticipated. And it's this act, this intense ritual, that reveals a glimpse of the real Elvis Presley, a man torn between worlds and searching for peace in the most unusual of ways. Number 4. The tension builds, frustrations, and inner conflict. As the world watched Elvis Presley rise to extraordinary fame, few could see the emotional toll it took on him. Behind the glitz and glamour of stardom, Elvis faced a battle against isolation, loneliness, and the unrelenting pressure of living up to his legendary image. Everywhere he went, he was met with crowds, adoration, and a seemingly endless demand for more of the king of rock and roll. Yet, despite the love from millions of fans, he struggled to find a sense of belonging. The constant scrutiny, the weight of expectation, and the realization that he could never truly be anonymous created an isolation that fame only deepened. To the outside world, he was an icon, a larger-than-life figure who seemed to have it all. But to Elvis, there were moments when his fame felt like a prison, and his heart longed for something beyond the superficial trappings of celebrity life. These pressures chipped away at his peace of mind, and it was here that his spiritual journey took on a darker, more complex edge. While Elvis turned to spirituality in search of comfort and understanding, his exploration didn't always bring the solace he sought. The deeper he went into the realms of mysticism and self-discovery, the more he unearthed truths that sometimes left him conflicted and unsettled. Elvis's spiritual beliefs became a double-edged sword. On one hand, they offered glimpses of peace and connection to something greater than himself. On the other, they sometimes clashed with the very fabric of who he was, causing an internal tension that only grew with time. He found himself pulled between the demands of fame and a yearning to understand his place in the world on a deeper, more spiritual level, a yearning that at times led to more questions than answers. This inner conflict left him searching, trying to reconcile the man he wanted to be with the image everyone else expected. And then, something in his personal library, those books he had treasured and studied for years, triggered a profound response. It was as if, within the pages of these texts, he found words or ideas that struck a raw nerve, reaching deep into his heart and unsettling his very core. What had once been sources of wisdom and guidance now began to stir a different kind of emotion within him. Whether it was a passage he read, a concept he struggled to accept, or a belief he could no longer reconcile, something within these books led him to a shocking and intense decision. The very books that had guided him on his spiritual path were now the focus of a ritual so dramatic, so unlike anything he had done before, that it left those close to him in disbelief. This act wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a powerful release of the emotions, conflicts, and burdens he had carried alone for so long. What drove him to this ritual? And what could it possibly mean about the inner life of Elvis Presley? As we draw closer to uncovering the full story, we'll see how one man's quest for peace led to a moment that few could have anticipated. Number 3. The bizarre ritual, burning the books. One night, in a moment that would shock anyone who knew him, Elvis Presley did something few would expect from a man so deeply connected to his cherished books. He carefully selected a handful of these volumes, books he had read, loved, and even relied on in his most private moments, and began preparing them for a shocking act. He didn't just throw them into a fire on a whim. He meticulously coated each book with oil, as if in preparation for a symbolic ritual. Then, in a quiet, secluded space, he set them alight, watching as the flames devoured the pages that had once held so much meaning for him. This was not a hasty decision made in a moment of anger or frustration. It was something far more intentional, a deliberate action that seemed to carry a weight of significance and finality. That night, as the fire crackled, Elvis watched his chosen books burn, letting the flames consume them, and with them, something buried deep within himself. For Elvis, This act went beyond simple destruction. It was a form of ritual cleansing, a powerful release of emotions and energies that had built up over years. These books had been his guides, his spiritual mentors, but somewhere along the way, they had also become symbols of inner conflict and unrest. Each book he chose to burn had, in some way, contributed to the weight he was carrying. By burning them, he wasn't rejecting the wisdom they held, but rather the turmoil they now represented. This ritual was Elvis's way of purging that negative energy, freeing himself from the internal battles that had been fueled by the words and ideas on those pages. It was a farewell to the confusion and conflict that had haunted him, a final act of letting go. Watching the fire consume those pages felt, perhaps, like shedding an old skin, a painful yet necessary act to move forward. The burning of his books held deep, symbolic meaning, as if Elvis was releasing not just physical objects, but pieces of his own identity he no longer wished to carry. Each book that went up in flames represented beliefs, ideals, or expectations that had once shaped him but had become burdensome in his search for peace. In that moment, he was saying goodbye to parts of himself he felt no longer served him, parts that perhaps had been in conflict with the person he yearned to be. This act was both a release and a rebirth, a way of clearing a path forward by eliminating the things that had kept him tethered to his past struggles. It was an emotional, powerful gesture, one filled with the raw intensity of a man desperate to find clarity and relief. For Elvis, this ritual marked the end of a chapter, a symbolic purging of his past, as he sought a future free from the weight of expectations and internal conflicts. Number 2. The possible motivations behind the ritual. The reasons behind Elvis's powerful and unsettling ritual are open to interpretation, but they offer a fascinating window into the inner life of a man who often seemed larger than life. Perhaps in burning these books, Elvis was trying to cleanse himself of certain influences that he felt had steered him off his desired path. Over the years, as he dove deeper into these spiritual and mystical texts, some ideas may have no longer resonated or may even have become burdens. This ritual could have been his way of breaking free from those beliefs, allowing himself to clear out the spiritual clutter and make room for new insights. Or maybe, after years of absorbing others' perspectives, he wanted to return to his own sense of self, untainted by external dogmas. This act may have been his attempt to reclaim his individuality, by letting go of the mentors and teachings that had once guided him but no longer felt like his own. This intense ritual also speaks volumes about Elvis's ongoing struggle to reconcile the dichotomy between his public and private lives, between his fame and his deeper spiritual needs. Elvis had spent years performing for the world, playing the role of a superstar, while privately yearning for something more meaningful than the adulation of fans or the accolades of success. For a man as famous as he was, this duality created a constant tension. He was adored for his public persona, but few truly knew the man behind it, someone who sought inner peace and understanding in a way that was rarely acknowledged. In burning these books, Elvis might have been attempting to free himself from the version of himself the world saw, stripping away influences that represented expectations rather than his true self. This ritual could have been a step toward reconciling his inner life with the image he projected, a step toward finding a place where he could be at peace with both. The question then arises, was this ritual a transformative act of spiritual liberation, or was it a desperate attempt to escape a frustration that he could no longer bear? The scene of Elvis alone, watching flames consume his cherished books, evokes a sense of both release and sorrow. Was he truly freeing himself, finally letting go of beliefs that had become a burden? Or was this a moment of helplessness, a final gesture made out of emotional exhaustion? As viewers, we are left to wonder whether this act was an empowering decision to start anew or a last resort, a dramatic purge born of a mind and heart that could no longer reconcile the weight of his struggles. In either case, This ritual paints a poignant portrait of a man yearning for meaning, a man who sought answers even in his most private, haunting moments. Number 1. Legacy and reflection. This strange ritual, the night Elvis Presley set fire to his most cherished books, adds a profound layer of complexity to the legacy of a man often seen as the embodiment of rock and roll. For so many, Elvis is remembered as the charismatic showman, the swiveling hips, the smooth voice, and the electrifying presence that could fill any room. But this ritual pulls back the curtain on a different side of the king, a side that battled inner demons, that was plagued by questions, and that was willing to take extreme, almost shocking actions to confront his own struggles. This image of Elvis, not as the dazzling star, but as a deeply conflicted soul searching for meaning, reminds us that fame doesn't shield anyone from personal battles. If anything, his fame intensified his isolation, making his internal conflicts even harder to bear. This ritual reveals a man of depth and vulnerability, an artist who was not afraid to confront himself in ways the world may never fully understand. Even now, decades after his passing, Elvis Presley continues to mystify and intrigue us. His music and films are timeless, yet it's these lesser-known, private moments that captivate our curiosity and pull us deeper into the enigma of his character. The ritual of burning his books is a testament to an inner life far more complex than the one we see on the surface. It's a reminder that Elvis was more than a rock and roll icon. He was a human being who felt the full spectrum of emotions, who struggled with his identity, and who sought answers in the shadows of fame. This act of setting his beloved books ablaze reveals a glimpse of his journey to find clarity, perhaps even peace. It's a haunting image that stays with us, adding a layer of poignancy to the legacy of a man we thought we knew. This act has become part of his story, a mystery that invites us to reconsider Elvis as not just a performer, but as a person who wrestled with the same doubts and questions that many of us do. So, what do you think this ritual reveals about Elvis's character? Was it a moment of liberation, a sign of his quest for self-discovery? Or was it an act of frustration, a symbol of his inner turmoil and struggle to find balance? Comment below and share your thoughts, because even now the king of rock and roll leaves us with more questions than answers, and his story is one we continue to piece together, one mystery at a time. We'd love to hear what you think about this extraordinary moment in Elvis's life. Was this ritual a bold act of liberation, or do you think it reflected the weight of his inner struggles? Share your thoughts, interpretations, and opinions in the comments below. Your insights are what keep Elvis's legacy alive and continue to unveil the layers of his incredible story. Let's dive into this mystery together. Leave your comments and let's discuss.